Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis. This is Shyam here taking up the analysis for 5th April 2026. Now, before I start, please do let me know that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those present in the session, please give the confirmation. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, in today's session, I've taken a total of 11 articles. 10 of them are from the daily edition of the Hindu newspaper. One of it is basically from the Indian Express. This has been done in order to ensure that the discussion will be comprehensive, helping you answer the questions in the prelims as well as the mains examination. Before I start, here is a very important announcement. If you want to test yourself before UPSC testing you regarding your UPSC preparation, then do attend Unacademy Civil Services Championship Plus 2026. This test is scheduled on 11th April. There are two slots. One is at 11 and the second one is at 4 p.m. According to your availability, please do register for the test and attend. In addition to testing whether your preparation is on the right track or not, you can also get a chance to win rewards, cash rewards, as well as Amazon gift vouchers. Do not miss out the opportunity. Use the link provided in the description below to register for the test. Now, let me begin the discussion. First one, why does Trump want to pull out of NATO? Right? Why there is so much of discussion regarding USA being unhappy with NATO? What is the historical background? And what are the important issues which have been raised by the administration of United States of America? Point number one, NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Back in the year 1949, there was an agreement that was signed, and as a result of this, multiple countries which were part of this, including USA, Canada, and 10 West European countries, they formed a grouping which is called as NATO. This was formed in order to ensure that the spread of the influence, or essentially they were worried about the spread of the, right, let's say the activities of Soviet Union back then. And this was a time period which is classified, or which is generally referred to as the Cold War era, which basically happened from the year 1947 to 1991. So the countries were worried that USSR might try to do something, might try to attack them. They wanted to push back the activities of the Soviet Union back then, and that actually led to formation of this grouping, which is known as NATO. Over a period of time, multiple countries have joined this particular grouping, and today there are 32 countries. There are 32 countries in this particular group. In fact, Ukraine, which is fighting a war with Russia, it also had shown an interest to join NATO, which has been put on the back burner now. They don't want to join. In addition to this, with Russia attacking Ukraine, multiple other countries have applied for NATO membership and have become the members of NATO. Just a repetition, right now there are 32 members of NATO. Now, this particular NATO grouping doesn't have its own army. That is, the NATO, although the headquarters is there, it is located in Brussels. Right? It doesn't have its own resources, it doesn't have its own personnel, etc. What generally happens is the resources, for example, the money, it is pulled from the member countries. What about the personnel who are used for, let's say, conducting military activities or military operations? Even the members, the military personnel are basically pulled from, again, the member countries. And this is where USA basically argues that it has been contributing more to the functioning of NATO compared to other member countries. But in return, I'll repeat, in return, USA is not getting favorable treatment or the correct treatment from the other NATO members. What is the meaning of it? Let me explain it. In terms of financial contributions, USA contributes huge amount of money. In terms of contribution to security, in terms of contribution in terms of security, USA guarantees the security of the member countries. And within the European countries, USA has established or set up bases in multiple countries in order to ensure that there is no untoward accident, or there is no untoward, right, let's say, activity or the military action that is conducted by the non NATO members such as Russia. So it provides protection in terms of nuclear coverage. It contributes huge sums of money, which is helping for the NATO to continue to conduct operations. It is conducting, or it is providing, right, the protection, security protection for the European countries. But in return, when you see what has been requested, or to be very precise, demanded by the USA in recent times, the members of NATO have not acted favorably. For example, in the context of USA attacking Iran, the president of USA wanted NATO members to join forces. They declined this particular offer. The president of USA wanted the NATO members to send their navies so that the Strait of Hormuz will remain open. The NATO members declined it. They wanted, that is, the USA forces wanted air access so that certain aeroplanes can, right, basically pass through the airspace of many of these members of NATO. That was declined. Many of the countries have, right, let's say, the military establishments set up outside their country. The USA troops wanted access to that. That was denied. So there have been multiple demands from the side of USA, especially in the last 1 month. But these particular demands have not been met. And, right, in fact, many countries of the NATO, many member countries of NATO, such as Italy, have been very critical of the USA operations in Iran. They have criticized USA starting this war in West Asia. Right? So these kind of activities which have happened, or events that have happened in the recent times, that has led to more friction between the government of USA as well as the other NATO ally members. And this is not the first time, by the way. Even when he was the president for the first term, Mr. President, that is Mr. Donald Trump, when he was the president back in the year 2016 to 2020, when he was the president in the first term, he was very critical of the NATO ally members. He was criticizing these NATO members because they do not spend sufficient amount of money in terms of defense expenditure. And this particular criticism was accepted by many of the members of NATO. And very recently, back in the year 2025 itself, when the meeting was held, when the 2025 Hague Summit was held, the NATO members have agreed that they will increase the expenditure in defense to 5% of their GDP, but gradually by 2035. It cannot be done immediately because every member country will have its own requirements, will have its own constraints, and historically speaking, the NATO members have relied more on the security being provided by the government of USA. In simple terms, many experts argue that they had outsourced, I repeat, the NATO members or the European countries had outsourced the security to USA. And that is one of the reasons why USA was considered and is still considered by many countries as the global leader. But this particular promise has been done by the NATO members, stating that they will increase the expenditure in defense to 5%, but by 2035. So these are some of the very important issues that are being discussed in the context of USA and NATO. Now, the current administration of USA has withdrawn USA from multiple organizations in the global market. It has basically withdrawn. Will USA also withdraw from NATO membership? Right? There are certain talks right now. Whether they withdraw or not, they will definitely push for reforms within NATO. They will definitely push for reforms within NATO. What is beneficial not only for, right, let's say USA, but also for Western economies, and also in the interest of the global stability. In the interest of the global stability is that USA must continue to be a part of NATO. It should continue to be remaining a member or a driver within the NATO. It should not withdraw, because once USA will withdraw, the highest expenditure in terms of military expenditure is done by USA. The largest military force, the equipments, etc., is with USA. If this kind of a country withdraws from a grouping, right, a security grouping like this, the other countries which want this to be destabilized, such as Russia, such as China, now they will be emboldened. Now they will basically become more stronger, because there is no group with USA, or NATO is without USA, the largest military power in the world. So withdrawal is not an option right now, although the talks are there, the statements have been issued by the administration. But what if they want to withdraw? Is there any provision for withdrawal of a member country from NATO? There is section or article number 13. Please remember this. There is article number 13 which basically specifies that if a member country of NATO wants to withdraw, what is the procedure to be followed. For a member country to be admitted, the article 10 talks about it, and article 13 talks about withdrawal of a member country. The article 13 simply states that if a country wants to withdraw from the membership of NATO, it has to first issue a notice of denunciation. It has to issue a notice of denunciation. That notice will be applicable for the next 1 year, and this notice of denunciation has to be issued to USA. Remember this. It has to be handed over to USA, and USA will basically pass on this particular issue, the notice, to all the other member countries of NATO. Now, if USA decides to withdraw from NATO, under Article 13, it has to issue a notice of denunciation, hand it over to itself, and then transmit or send this particular notice to all the other member countries of NATO. Right? So this is one very important article. Please remember this. In addition to this, like I said, the resources as well as the personnel of all the 32 member countries are pooled. Now, where is the headquarters, or what is the, right, let's say the point of, right, let's say operation for all of this, from where the information is sent, from where it is controlled? There is a command structure called as Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. Please remember the name SHAPE, SHAP, based in Belgium. I said earlier Brussels. Brussels is in Belgium. It is led by the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, a 4-star USA General or Admiral who heads the US European Command. Alright, so these are certain very important points in the context of the article given here. Everybody is okay with the discussion? Please do let me know in the chat section. Now, based on this, here is an MCQ. Please solve and tell me what is the correct answer. Consider the following statements regarding NATO. The headquarters is in Brussels, Belgium. Second one, any member country of United Nations can become a member country of NATO. Article 13 of North Atlantic Treaty provides for withdrawal of any member. What is the correct option? Okay, let's start. The headquarters of the NATO is in Brussels, Belgium. Yes. Any member country of United Nations can become a member of country of NATO. Please remember, no. Only European countries are allowed to become members of NATO, not any member country of the United Nations. Article 13 of NATO provides for withdrawal of any member. Yes, first and third statements are correct. Right option for the question will be option B. Only 2 of the statements are correct. Okay, let's go forward. Now, based on the discussion, here is a question for you to practice mains answer writing. I keep on telling this or emphasizing on this. Please practice mains answer writing. Trust me when I say this. Prelims and mains, most of you will be focused on prelims. But at the same point of time, my recommendation or my advice is to focus on mains answer writing practice as well. Okay, so discuss the strategic importance of NATO for both the United States and Europe. What challenges does the alliance face today? Write the answer to the question in 250 words. It's a 15 marker question. Next article. Indian refiners are procuring Iranian crude. Statement that has been issued, a clarification that has been provided by Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. What has happened? Listen to the sequence very carefully here. Before 2019, before 2019, India used to import Iranian crude. Simple, everybody is okay. Before 2019, India used to import Iranian crude. In fact, if you go back further, let's say look at 2010, 2011, 2012, the Iranian crude imports in India were very high. There are estimates which show that India used to import in the range of 12 to 13% of total requirement of crude from Iran. And when you import from Iran, obviously earlier, not today, earlier, the payment was done in terms of dollars. Right? It was done in terms of dollars. Now what happened? Iran was imposed with sanctions. Right? There is an agreement, JCPOA, nuclear agreement, simple. Nuclear agreement. USA announced that it will withdraw from the nuclear agreement. It was Mr. Donald Trump only in the first term in 2018. So once the announcement was done, the sanctions were reimposed on Iran. And when the sanctions were reimposed, simple, the institutions in Iran, they were also under the sanction, and now they were kept out of SWIFT system. They were kept out of SWIFT system. Now, very often when you read about SWIFT or international payments, you will come across SWIFT. In the context of Russia also, the institutions in Russia have not been allowed now, are not allowed now to get access to SWIFT after Russia attacked Ukraine back in the year 2022. So SWIFT basically stands for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. Use of the SWIFT is very simple. Whenever the banks will have to transfer funds across the border, I'm talking about across the border. So when the banks will have to transfer funds across the border, the banks will have to exchange information. They will have to exchange information such as who is the recipient, what is the bank account, what is the bank identifier, code, etc. So this kind of information has to be exchanged between these banks across the border. For that purpose, they use a SWIFT messaging system. Simple. They use this particular system to exchange information and then conduct the transactions. So after the sanctions were reimposed, the Iranian financial institutions were removed from the SWIFT system, which basically made it difficult for India to pay for the imports of crude oil that were done from Iran. And these sanctions were reimposed. After that, certain relaxations or waivers were provided to Government of India. During the waiver, Government of India continued to import but make payment in terms of rupees. Remember this. They made payments in terms of rupees, and for some of the imports, they basically used one more system where European banks were used to make payments in terms of euros for the import of crude oil that we did from Iran. Now, even this was not allowed. The waivers were withdrawn, or waivers time period got over. Even this was not allowed. Now, Government of India basically entered into one more type of a, let's say transaction understanding, where government simply said, I will continue to import crude oil. And all I'm talking right now before 2019, by the way. Right? This is before 2019. So Government of India simply said, I will continue to import crude oil, but for this, they can basically enter into barter system. That is, instead of receiving payment, the same amount will be used for, equating exports from India to Iran. That is, the other exports that we do to Iran, for example, agriculture commodities, for example, the pharmaceutical, etc. So on one side, if I import crude oil, I'll have to pay money. On the other side, I will export. That money will be utilized to pay for India's exports. So this kind of a mechanism was entered. And post 2019, I'm talking here, post 2019, the government of India stopped importing crude oil from Iran. Now, after 7 years, government of India now again has stated that with the 30 day, not 30 year, with a 30-day waiver or relaxation that has been provided or announced by the USA administration, that is any oil which is Iranian oil, the Iranian oil which is in the sea, right? This particular Iranian oil can be purchased by the countries, and this particular the waiver has been announced for 30 days. So for the first time after 7 years, India has started importing crude oil from Iran. This is basically the update that you need to understand from the context of, right, the newspaper article here. Of course, in yesterday's newspaper also, almost all the newspapers, there was one article which stated that there was one vessel which was carrying the crude oil from Iran to India. And midway, rather than docking in India, rather than coming to India and transferring the crude oil, it changed the direction and has gone on to China. The government of India simply clarifies that whether the vessel comes to India or goes to any other country, that is entirely the prerogative of the vessel, that is a seller. And that is how the international market transactions work. If any other country offers a higher payment, the vessel can get derouted or rerouted and they can go to the other country and sell it. That is basically the practice in the international market. But that does not mean that there is some miscommunication or misunderstanding, or there are certain payment issues between India and Iran, and that is the reason the ship has been redirected. This information, the government says, is not accurate. This information is incorrect. So government of India has clarified, India has started importing crude oil from Iran and the natural gas also from Iran now. Right, so these are the two very important points of information. In addition to this, the government also stated that India is importing crude oil from 40 countries now, from over 40 countries as of now. Everybody is okay with the discussion? Can we move on to the next article? Do let me know. Can we move on to the next article now? Akshay, can you please tell if we should study current affairs till April or is till March enough? If you are appearing for the Prelims 2026, focus on revision now. Don't worry about the current affairs, focus on the revision, right? Because questions may be asked, no guarantee, but please understand, more than sufficient, right? Till the end of March, more than sufficient. Okay, let's go forward. CBSE 3-language formula. CBSE has come out with a new set of guidelines revamping their education system. When I say education system, CBSE has announced multiple changes. One of the most important changes is starting 26 and 27, they will introduce the 3-language formula for the students studying in the 6th standard. Is the statement clear for all of you? CBSE has announced that starting 26 and 27, the students who are studying in the 6th standard, now they will have to learn 3 languages. Right? This is basically as a part of National Education Policy 2020. The NEP 2020 simply states that the students till the 10th standard, will have to learn 3 languages. Right now the practice is 2 languages. Now this has been extended to cover 3 languages. Out of 3 languages, at least 2 languages should be Indian. At least 2 languages should be Indian. So this particular announcement has been done by CBSE. Now, as usual, with this announcement being done by CBSE, there is a political fight between the state of Tamil Nadu as well as the Union Minister for Education. Right? The argument is very simple. On one side, the representative, or let's say the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, argues that there is no sufficient infrastructure that is available right now. We do not have sufficient infrastructure. We do not have sufficient number of teachers. We do not have textbooks for this. right? So when you look at all of this, in addition to central government imposing Hindi, again please understand this is political argument. In addition to imposition of Hindi, this is going to become problem, and this is basically violating the federalist nature in India, right? The states should not be following this, center should not be imposing this. On the other hand, the central government argues that this particular policy, that is the three language policy, is not a policy to impose Hindi. Options are there, it is not a policy to impose Hindi, and it's not compulsory that under this particular policy only Hindi should be taught as an additional language to the children. It is basically the fault of the state governments which have not implemented the various policies or other educational schemes. And because the elections are there, because the elections are around the corner, this is being made as a, right, let's say, political issue. So don't worry about the political argument, but my sense is this, or my argument is this: whether you are in favor of a three language policy or against a three language policy, don't you think we are missing the interest of one of the most important stakeholders in this particular policy? That is children. The children, right? Why is the discussion only about, right, let's say, whether to impose or not to impose? Why are we not taking into consideration the interest of the children? Questions such as, is it going to add to the burden of the children who are already burdened by many of the languages or many of the other subjects? Is it going to add to the extra pressure on the children who are basically right now in India? I'm pretty sure all of you have experienced this or seen this. There is always a race. Within the education system, there is always a race. Which child will score highest number of marks? Which, right, a son or daughter will score higher number of marks? Within the family, there is a competition. This number of marks that is scored by the children are essentially treated as some award that is given to the family. And the family will basically favor the child which will score more number of marks and not the one which scores lesser number of marks. As if only the children who score more will be successful in the life. So argument is, right, there should be a detailed discussion on even the interest of the most important stakeholder, that is children. My argument is we are missing that particular debate as of now. Anyways, right, so the three language policy now will come into force under the CBSE system. That is the update. Please make a note of this. Now, based on this, here is a question. Please solve the question and tell me. And by the way, please do let me know your thoughts as well. Those who are watching the session right now, what are your thoughts regarding this? And those who will watch the session later in a recorded format, do let me know what are your thoughts regarding, right, my argument. Okay, let's go forward. Consider the following statements. CBSE is headquartered in New Delhi and functions under the Ministry of Education. Yes. First statement is true, by the way. Unlikely statement, unlikely. But you never know what UPSC will do. Unlikely, but yes, the statement 1 is correct. The NEP 2020 mandates that students till class 12th must learn 3 languages. It's not till 12th, it is till 10th. Right? Till 10th. And second point is learn 3 Indian languages. It's not 3 Indian languages. It is 3 languages. At least 2 Indian languages, but it is 3 languages. Everybody is able to understand the difference here? Do let me know in the chat section. The NEP 2020 states the student has to learn 3 languages, right? And it has to be at least 2 Indian languages, which means, let's say you take 2 languages, Indian languages. In addition to this, English, which is treated as a foreign language, you can take English. Right, so that is essentially the difference. Please be very careful. This can be a potential trap. Instead of 12th, if they write 10th, even then the statement will be incorrect. Even then the statement will be incorrect. So please be very careful. And in addition to this, CBSE is also offering the other languages now. All the 22 languages under the Constitution of India, which are official languages, all the 22 languages now will be offered by CBSE. The latest languages which CBSE is offering is Dongri, right? Maithili, Konkani, and Santhali. Even these particular regional languages or Indian languages are being offered by CBSE. Right? So please be very careful. Question can be asked in the UPSC examination. Next one. Sabarimala verdict review. Supreme Court notifies 9-judge bench. What are the important points? Back in the year 2018, right? Back in the year 2018, that is specifically September 2018, a Supreme Court bench of 5 judges in a majority ruling 4:1 basically struck down a certain policy which was followed regarding the entry of women in Sabarimala, right? That is a temple, Sabarimala temple. The policy basically read that women in the range of 10 years to 50 years, right? Women in the age range of 10 years to 50 years should not be allowed or will not be allowed entry into this particular temple. Why? This is a convention. It is basically a religious practice which has been followed earlier. Hence, it will also continue to be implemented. Supreme Court of India in this particular ruling favored the fact that there is no requirement of imposition just because it is a convention. There is no requirement of this kind of an imposition. And in a majority of 4:1 struck down this particular practice. But what this particular ruling did not provide the complete argument was, it basically stopped short of settling larger legal issue. It did not provide clarity regarding a larger legal issue. Two very important issues here. One, what if there are multiple fundamental rights under the Constitution of India? Because the Supreme Court in its order stated that this particular convention is against a fundamental right. So what if there are multiple fundamental rights which are, right, basically competing with each other? In such case, right, what will happen? Right? This particular judgment did not give the answer to this. And second issue was whether the Supreme Court has the authority to determine what counts as an essential religious practice. Right? So Supreme Court of India's order, 2018 order, struck down the practice. But these two questions, bigger legal questions, were not answered in the order. Multiple review petitions were filed. Against this particular order. And right, in 2018 and 2019, a nine-judge bench of Supreme Court basically looked into whether it is legally maintainable. That is, the review petitions are legally maintainable. And the Supreme Court bench now said, yes, these review petitions are maintainable and must be addressed now. During the pandemic, just before the pandemic started, right, a larger bench was established or set up. But because of the pandemic, the order or the Supreme Court could not take up this particular issue and issue a judgment. Now, finally, in the year 2026, a 9-judge bench. In the 2026, a 9-judge bench has been set up, and this particular 9-judge bench will hear both the sides in the month of April itself, and by the end of the month will issue the order associated with the review of the 2018 judgment. As of now, there are 67 petitions. There are 67 review petitions which have asked the Supreme Court of India to review the 2018 judgment. Everybody is okay? Right, so this is basically the update. But what are the other important points that you need to make a note of from this particular article? Now, why there is a requirement of a 9-judge bench? Please understand. Why is there a requirement of a 9-judge bench? Argument is a higher bench, right? A higher bench should be set up whenever there has to be a review. And there is a requirement of creating these kind of constitutional benches. There is a requirement of creating these particular constitutional benches under Article 145(3). Article 145(3) basically states that whenever there are questions in front of the Supreme Court, Supreme Court has to judge or basically issue an order where they have to review questions of larger legality. We will have to set up a constitutional bench of at least 5 judges. For example, let's say there is a presidential review, right? Presidential reference is there under Article 143. Even in that particular case, a constitutional bench of at least 5 judges has to be set up by the Supreme Court, right? So these are certain important points in the context of the 9-judge bench which has been set up by the Supreme Court. Let's wait and see what will be the arguments put forward by both the sides and what will be the final order issued by the Supreme Court. Now, associated with this, here is a question. Please solve the question and tell me what is the correct answer. Tell me what is the correct answer. Article 145(3) of Indian Constitution mandates formation of constitutional bench of at least 5 judges. The largest ever constitutional bench in the history of Supreme Court of India was formed to hear Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala case. I'm pretty sure all of you have heard and read about Kesavananda Bharati. Which of the two statements are correct? Tell me very quickly. 145(3), yes, this is correct. Second statement, 13-judge bench. 13-judge bench in the context of Kesavananda Bharati, yes, that is also correct. Both of the statements are true. Right option will be option C here. Let's go forward. There are 2 articles that I've taken. RBI set for anti-mis-selling norms focus on incentives, and I've added one more article from today's Indian Express. The HDFC Bank taking action against 15 executives in total regarding mis-selling of additional Tier 1 bond. Now, what is the discussion? Let me explain. Let me start with a very simple example. Couple of months ago, there was a 90-year-old person, right, in one of the states in India, who was sold an insurance product. 90-year-old person who was sold an insurance product. Annually, the premium that should be paid by the individual is 2 lakh rupees. Annually, the premium has to be paid by the individual is 2 lakh rupees. And this insurance would mature in 21-24. I hope all of you understand the meaning of this. I'll repeat this. A 90-year-old person is sold with an insurance product. This person has to pay an insurance premium of 2 lakh rupees every month. And this product, that the insurance product, will mature in 21-24. Right? So this is basically a prime example of a mis-selling of a financial product. And in case of India, despite multiple warnings being issued by regulators such as RBI, regulators such as Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India, Finance Ministry, etc., the practice of mis-selling has been continuously happening, especially the financial products. It could be in the context of, right, let's say shares, bonds, other instruments such as SIP or instruments such as insurance products, etc. There is a lot of mis-selling that actually happens in India. Now, Reserve Bank of India, please understand, in recent times, there are 2 articles that you need to understand. One is the Insurance Amendment Act. Insurance Amendment Act has been introduced, passed by the Parliament, under which the most important point that you have read is the FD under insurance has been increased to 100%. But in addition to that, there is also certain very important provisions which have been introduced now, which will try to contain the practices of mis-selling of insurance products. But in addition to this, now the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, Reserve Bank of India is all set to introduce responsible business conduct rules. Responsible business conduct rules. Right? What is the RBI trying to do? The RBI is trying to introduce this particular set of rules which will have certain guidelines. Again, I'm not discussing guidelines for a simple reason. It is yet to be announced. It is proposed to be announced. It is yet to be announced. So there is a discussion that RBI will introduce these set of rules which will try to contain the practices of mis-selling of financial products. So why should the RBI take this kind of a action, or let's say this kind of a policy? Reason behind that is the banks are involved in selling of lot of third party financial products. The banks are involved in selling of third party financial products. So the Reserve Bank of India wants the banks to operate in a certain way. Generally what happens is many of these particular financial products which are sold, the returns to the agents, or let's say the managers, the returns that they earn is basically given in the form of incentives. Higher the number of products that they sell, higher the number of financial services that they sell, the incentives are connected to that. And in order to earn higher amount of incentives, they are not worried whether the candidate is the right candidate or not, whether the candidate requires this relevant information or not. They are least bothered. They will try to basically showcase very good features of the product, may not provide the complete picture of the risk associated with the product, and will end up selling this particular product to the clients. Right? So Reserve Bank of India wants to address this particular problem. But when RBI is trying to do this, the most important point is about incentives, right? The incentives that are provided to the, right, let's say the insurance companies, etc. Now that is only under the control of Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. Is everybody okay? Right? IRDAI has the power to impose restrictions or regulations over the, right, let's say the incentive structure. So many of the experts are arguing if this has to be addressed, the problem of mis-selling has to be addressed. It's not just Reserve Bank of India. The reforms have to be announced even by Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. In fact, they've done some of the reforms or announced some of the reforms, because this has been there in the discussion or on the radar of IRDAI since 2023. But the problem is, despite having multiple measures in place, the practice of mis-selling has been continuously happening. I'll just give you one example associated with the idea of a mis-selling. Article from Indian Express, additional tier 1 bond. What is the basic idea here? There are a set of guidelines which are called as Basel guidelines. Basel guidelines are announced by Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. These guidelines are imposed or basically recommendations in nature, because the Basel guidelines, please understand, these are voluntary in nature. These are not legal obligations. These are voluntary. So Basel Committee on Banking Supervision has come out with various guidelines. The member countries will have to implement these guidelines. India is one of the examples. Reserve Bank of India has implemented Basel guidelines. Under the Basel guidelines, there is one rule which states that the banks will have to have sufficient amount of capital. Capital, let's equate in a very simple way, money. Why should the bank have their own money, not customers' money, their own money? Reason is simple. The banks will have to have this kind of a money in order to absorb losses. One way to collect this kind of money is by issuing bonds which are called as AT1 bonds. Everybody is with me? Please do let me know. Everybody is following? AT1 bonds, additional tier 1 bonds. So the banks have to issue additional tier 1 bonds, collect the money, and use this money in case there is a financial emergency. Use this money to absorb losses. But please understand, the additional tier 1 bonds are very risky. These are very, very risky. Why? If the bank incurs a loss, if the bank faces financial issues, in such cases, the bank might simply say, I'm not going to repay the interest amount. I'm not going to repay the principal. I'm not going to pay the interest as well. So these are very risky instruments. So what has happened in the context of the HDFC Bank? HDFC Bank is said to have purchased a lot of these additional tier 1 bonds of Credit Suisse. It is one more financial institution, foreign financial institution. It is said that they have purchased a lot of 81 bonds of Credit Suisse Bank. And when they realize that these are very risky in nature, right? Because if the Credit Suisse, which was very much indicative at that point of time, If they incur losses, the payment will not be done to HDFC. So it is stated that the managers of HDFC purposely, even after realizing that there might be a failure of repayment, they have simply sold these additional tier 1 bonds to other customers of the bank. They have purposely sold these particular instruments to other customers of the bank. And while selling, misrepresentation, misinformation has been provided. Arguments such as these are very safe instruments, these will provide guaranteed returns to you, etc. So this kind of a mis-selling has been conducted, and this has come into light. Earlier, the HDFC Bank had taken action against 3 employees. Now the list has been expanded to cover 15 employees. So these are the important points associated with this article, which talks about mis-selling of financial instruments in India. Now, this is the question. Please solve the question and tell me what is the correct answer. The Basel guidelines are issued by the World Bank. RBI can impose a stricter capital requirements than Basel norms for Indian banks. The Basel banking norms are legally binding on all countries. First statement, issued by the World Bank, incorrect. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. RBI can impose a strict capital or stricter capital requirements than Basel norms for Indian banks. Yes, this is correct, by the way. For example, under Basel Committee guidelines, the capital adequacy is supposed to be 8%. Reserve Bank of India has increased it to 9%. Basel banking norms are legally binding on all the countries. Incorrect. Right option for the question will be option A. Only one of the 3 statements are correct. Now, certain small articles, right, basic information that is required. Mission Mitra. For the first time, ISRO has launched, or ISRO is conducting till 9th of April, Mission Mitra. Where it is being conducted? It is being conducted in high altitude environment of Ladakh. What is the importance? First and foremost, Mission Mitra stands for Mapping of Interoperable Traits and Response Assessment. Now, let's say certain manned missions are conducted, right? That is, right, let's say humans, individuals are sent in a space mission. In the space, the environment will be very difficult. Let's say they are sent to moon, right, as it is being considered by NASA now, or even China. India is also having a plan like this. They are sent to moon. Now, this is a very difficult terrain, very rugged terrain. And when, right, let's say these people are on the moon or on a different planet like this, or right on moon like, which is being considered now, there will be a lot of impact psychologically. And if these people cannot communicate to each other during this particular difficult terrain, what if, right, certain equipment, right, let's say malfunctions? What if something has to be communicated in the right way, which is understandable to the other people on the mission, etc.? Now we need to train them. We need to put them through that particular procedure, or let's say we need to train them in the right environment. Just like we recommend to you people, aspirants, attempt as many tests as possible, right? Attempt keeping a timer, etc., so that you understand how exactly you will behave, how to operate in that kind of an environment. In the same way, have a look at this. Under Mission Mitra, at high altitudes now, these, right, let's say candidates will be taken there and they will be trained till 9th of April so that we can study how they will behave, what is the right way to communicate to each other, how the systems will operate, etc. This is being conducted for the first time in India, and this is being conducted by ISRO. Mission Mitra is a first of its kind team behavioral study designed by, this can be a potential question in the prelims examination, ISRO and IIF, Institute of Aerospace Medicine. Right, so these are the 2 important points associated with Mission Mitra. Next, states to benefit from delimitation. The Prime Minister in a speech has spoken about certain important points. What are the important points? There is a lot of discussion that is happening in the context of delimitation. And in the context of delimitation, because now the census, right, has begun, In that particular context, there is a concern. There is a concern, especially amongst people from southern part of India, or I should say the political parties from the southern part of India. Essentially, the concern is that if the delimitation is conducted and let's say the population is taken, the states from southern part of India will end up losing lot of the seats in the parliament. That is, let's say, Lok Sabha. Correct? Very simple. Because generally it is the population which is considered as a measure to decide how many states will end up having how many seats in the Lok Sabha. And that's the reason most populated states in India, according to the last delimitation that was conducted, have ended up having very high number of seats. So the concern is, if the delimitation is conducted now, the states, especially from southern part of India, might end up losing, right, let's say, a lot of seats. Now, regarding this, right, certain assurance has been provided by the Prime Minister. Unofficially, right now this number is there in the newspaper. The argument is, right now, there are 543 seats in the Lok Sabha. Correct? 543 seats. The argument is, the central government has proposed that they will basically increase this particular number from 543, right, to a higher number, that will be 816. They want to increase this particular number from 543 to 816. This is point number one. Point number two. In addition to this, the center is also pushing for this idea of providing 33% of the seats, that is the 33% reservation for women. 33% reservation for women. So point number one is, the Prime Minister says, we will protect. Right? Please understand. Prime Minister in the speech has stated, we will provide protection to the states. There is some miscommunication. Purposely, this is being communicated to you that you will be losing the, right, let's say, seats. Right? This is not true. We will provide protection to you. But one area where there is no clear communication as of now, I'm repeating this. One area where there is no clear communication as of now is whether the seats will be continued between all the states or amongst all the states in the same proportion. In the same proportion. Yes, the number of seats will increase. Agreed. Absolute number of seats will increase. But will the same proportion be continued between all the states as it is currently held? That clarity is not given. Even that was not clarified by the Prime Minister. So one point is, we will increase the number of seats. So don't worry, you will not lose the seats. Your seats will not come down. Second one is, there is a push for getting this particular bill passed, which will provide 33% of the seats reserved for women candidates. And the argument is, out of 816 seats, 273 seats will be reserved for women parliamentarians, women MPs. In Lok Sabha, 273 will be reserved for women MPs. And these particular 273 will be the new constituencies that will be created. Done? So these are certain important points that you need to take away from the speech that has been given by the Prime Minister. But in addition to this, there is one more very important point. Please make a note of this. There is a particular name of the district which has been mentioned. Right? There is a name of a district. That is Pathanamthitta. Pathanamthitta district. Why this particular district is relevant for your civil services exams? It is the district with the lowest total fertility rate. Please make a note of this. It is the district with lowest total fertility rate. Agreed? You don't have to remember what is the TFR for all the states. You don't have to remember the TFR for all the districts. It is not required. But at least make a note of those which are mentioned in the newspaper. At least the ones which are mentioned in the newspaper. Right? So this is the district with the lowest total fertility rate of 1.3, which is much lower than the replacement rate of 2.1, which is much lower than the replacement rate of 2.1. Everybody is okay? So these are certain points. Please make a note of them. The PPT will be made available to you after the session is over. Download it. Next article, West Asia, right? The war in West Asia. Certain important updates. Point number one, Trump, the president of USA, Mr. Donald Trump, has given a deadline of 48 hours, that is 2 days, for Iran to come to the negotiating table and have a deal with USA. And by the way, this is not the first time that this kind of a deadline has been given by the president of USA. Earlier also, deadlines were given and again postponed. But more importantly, that is the second point of discussion here. More importantly, now multiple jets of USA, multiple fighter jets of USA have been hit, have been downed by Iranian guards. And now the concern is that one pilot, one of the, let's say the armed personnel from the, let's say the military of USA, one pilot of USA has basically ejected himself from this particular plane. There were two pilots. One has been rescued, and the second one, it is reported that he has landed after ejecting himself or herself. They have landed within the territory of Iran. They have landed within the territory of Iran. Right? So now the concern is the military or the forces from Iran, they are also frantically searching for this particular person. And multiple operations now, the rescue operations, they have tried it. They have not been able to retrieve or basically bring back this armed personnel of USA right now. So the concern is, and I hope you understand, this is not the first time that these kind of events have happened in the war at the global level. I'll just give you one example why USA is worried right now. They are worried that this, let's say fighter pilot might be, let's say held by Iran. In fact, that there is an announcement in the Iranian TV news as well. That is, the anchor stated that if anybody finds this American pilot, catch hold of him. Catch hold of him, don't kill him, retrieve him alive. Hand over this particular person and get payment. Get the money paid. So argument is, what if they capture this American soldier? They will basically parade him, or parade her over the news. They will create a bigger issue out of it, and they will have a better leverage. And that has created certain panic within USA. And this is not the first time I'm saying. Please understand, back in the year 1979, it was a much bigger issue back then. Back in the year 1979, there were militant students in Iran during the revolution. Militant students held 52 American hostage. Held 52 Americans as hostages. And this hostage situation continued for 444 days. More than 1 year, mind you. So the concern is the same can be repeated. Same will get repeated. And this is never good for the administration. In fact, when Mr. Donald Trump, when he was not the president of America back then, he criticized Mr. Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was the president of America back then. He criticized Jimmy Carter's policies because they were not able to retrieve or get these particular people, American citizens, very quickly out of Iran back then. So they are worried that the same might be repeated again, and the leverage, whatever bargaining chips the USA has, they will end up losing it to Iran. So this is one more update. Next article, center can't treat states as a subordinates. Justice Nagaratna, important statements. Some of the statements in a lecture, are relevant for UPSC examination. Please understand what are the important points which have been raised by Justice Nagaratna, who is in seniority line to become the Chief Justice of India in the year 2027, that is next year. In the, let's say speech, or let's say the lecture that was given by Justice Nagaratna, she basically stated that, or the justice stated that, right now there is a practice between the center as well as the states, or amongst the states itself. Whenever there is certain difference, one or the other party will run to the judiciary and file an application. And as a result of this, the number of cases where the governments, here is the case where it is not against a government or a government against a company, not against government and a citizen. It is a government against government. So there have been multiple instances where the parties are unhappy with the policies of each other. They approach court and file a case. And this adds to the burden in the judiciary. This will add to the burden in the judiciary. But moreover, the statement was very simple. In case of India, the Constitution of India is federal in structure. It is federal in structure, but it is it is unitary in spirit. Unitary in spirit. That is, when you talk about the arrangement that has been provided in the Constitution of India, when you look at the powers that have been distributed to the center, powers which have been given to the state, the center has to treat the state as, right, coordinates. The center has to treat the states as coordinates, not as subordinates. Right? It's not as if these are lower, right? These have lesser power, so you'll treat them inferiorly. And especially whenever there is a particular state where the government has been formed by another political party, there have been multiple instances where the frictions have arisen between the center as well as the states, and this has been brought to the court. The argument is this, right, is not a feature of a mature federation. This is never a feature of a, right, let's say, mature federation. A mature federation must prioritize dialogue and negotiation over litigations. Warning has been provided that the growing tendency of the governments to rush to the courts refers to a deeper structural problem, deeper structural concerns. And this practice between the center as well as the states is not going to strengthen the constitution, rather, it is going to weaken the constitution. So these are some of the statements that have been given by the justice here. Please make a note of the statement. If I were the person, I'm not by the way, if I were the person setting up question paper, please look at the second statement. This statement, which has been issued by the justice, can be taken and directly put as a question for 150 words or 250 words. The vertical separation of powers between the governments, center and the state, is not a hierarchy of priority. It is the constitutional arrangement of co-equals. That is, the central government has been given more powers. In hierarchy, it comes first, and then the powers have been allocated to the states. It is not because the center is given more priority. It is because basically the powers have to be distributed between two co-equals. And the statement is the center has to basically treat the states, right? The center has to behave like an elder brother. So these are certain important points. Finally, the last article for today's discussion, just an update here. Transgender Amendment Act has been challenged. We have been discussing this particular issue for some time now. I have also taken a couple of times the discussion on this. Chetan sir also has taken up this Amendment Act. Basically, the friction is simple. According to the judgment that was issued back in the year 2014, the NALSA judgment, the government of India 2019 brought in the act to protect the transgenders. There was the idea of self-recognition. Now the government of India, through an amendment act, wants to do away with that. They want to introduce a system where a medical board shall be set up. Right? The medical board will give a recommendation based on which the district officials will give the ID cards to the transgenders. This has been opposed. The argument is, it is against, right, the NALSA judgment of 2014. So this Amendment Act, which has been proposed by the center, now has been challenged at the Supreme Court. Let's wait and see what will be, right, the outcome of this particular challenge. Okay, so these are the various articles, concepts, as well as the questions I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. If there are any issues or doubts, do let me know. I'll address them. If you have liked the discussion, do not forget to hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, join right now. Any doubts? Okay, that's it then. Thank you. Take care. Have a great Sunday. Right, so see you next time. Have a great day.